What's up, guys, and welcome to a special edition of Player Pool. We're looking at the Sunday Wild Card slate. We got 3 games on this slate that should be pretty interesting, including one that could end up in a potential upset. I'll dig into it right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at PumaCom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Player Pool. Got a special Sunday edition of the Wild Card slate, and we got 3 games in this one. Potentially upset game in this one. We got 3 interesting games, though, nonetheless, and they're 3 pretty good matchup games. So defenses are pretty strong on today's slate, and that should set things up nicely for us on our DraftKings lineup building. Going to build some lineups and a player pool here on this Sunday slate. And the games, I think the most interesting, get into that in a second, but make sure to hit that like button. Give me the 30 likes so I can put my favorite plays in the comments section later on. And make sure to subscribe to the channel. I've been putting out content throughout these playoffs, and going to want to subscribe so you can sign up for the alerts. The content doesn't go up on a set schedule. Recording this right now on Sunday morning. Sometimes I'll record on Saturday night if I have a chance to, but I'm getting to this one a little bit late. So sign up for the alerts when you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also, I'm trying to get to 1,600 subscribers, so I need about 50 to get there. I'm trying to get there before the end of Wild Card weekend, so I appreciate the help with that. So today's slate, we got a 3-game slate. Very interesting games on this one. The first one is going to be the Denver Broncos versus the Buffalo Bills. That's a 47.5-point total with Buffalo as 8.5-point favorites. They're playing in Buffalo. We also got the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Green Bay Packers. That one's going to be in Philly. That's a 45.5-point total with Philadelphia as 4.5-point favorites. And then we got the we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Washington Commanders. That's a 50.5-point total. And we got Tampa Bay as 3-point favorites in that one. So a lot of interesting games on the slate today. I think that the Tampa Bay game is the most likely to shoot out, and I think that the Denver game should be interesting for a potential upset, and I'll get into that in a second on how they match up. Make sure to hit the like button, like I said, and give me the 30 likes. Also, make sure to sign up for Underdog using a promo code SEEK, SEEK. That's going to get you a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. You want to do that because playoff best ball is going to be continuing throughout these playoffs. But also, I've been putting up pick'em videos throughout the season. I had a 56-1 hit the other day, and yesterday came very close on another, I believe 53-1. It came very close. We just missed our Heat Seeker pick, which is the long shot touchdown yesterday, and that was who was it? It was Mechie, John Mechie on the Texans, and he barely. He had a ton of targets yesterday. He had 8 targets. He led the team in targets. He just didn't hit for us. But we move on to the next one. So, I'm going to share my screen now. First, we'll take a look at the Denver-Buffalo game. That's the one that's going on at 12 o'clock, and at least Central Time. And I think that is the game that is ripe for a potential upset. The Broncos match up pretty well against Buffalo, and Buffalo is facing a very tough defense in the Denver Broncos. And the only thing that the Broncos have been giving up points to is the running back position, basically. Otherwise, they've been pretty middling. We're talking about a shutdown corner in Pat Surtain. And on the Buffalo side, we really don't have a stud receiver that we can speak of. Maybe Amari Cooper would be shadowed by Surtain. Maybe Keon Coleman. I'm not really sure how that's going to work out, or maybe they just play sides, and it doesn't really matter because there's not really a guy that stands out. But if we can figure out who the opponent is going to be for Surtain, we can know the guy that we're going to want to want to fade. Let's see if I can figure that out right now. Actually, gonna use fantasy points to see if I can find out if the matchup advantage. And I've been using their data recently, and they do a chart, a cornerback, wide receiver matchup chart that works pretty well. And they let you know if they are projecting someone to be shadowed. I've used it a few times in situations where I've found out that the player, the receiver on like maybe a two receiver situation where I thought that they were going to be potentially shadowed, ends up being a different receiver that was shadowed. All right, so I'm looking at the. See, I'm going to share over. I'm going to share over fantasy points. I got the week 17 up. Let's see if they have one for. See if they have one for the wild card round. All right. So while I'm searching for this, make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's just go back over here. All right. So the Josh Allen, he's going to have, like a pretty rough matchup against the Denver Broncos. They're only giving up 15.8 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. And I just don't think that he has as good a matchup as people are probably projecting. He's probably the highest projected ownership on the slate. I'll check that out real quick. Looks like he is number 2, right behind Jaden Daniels, but they're both basically at the same amount of ownership. That's going to be a good situation for us if we like Bo Nix in this one. And the Bills have been giving up 16.4 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. And I think that's going to actually set up Bo Nix for a nice spot in this one. You can see he's been lighting it up recently. We thought 36 DraftKings points last week. He had 22 week prior to that and 21 the week prior to that. Keep in mind that 36-point game was against Kansas City's backups. He's also had another 30-point game, several that came close to 30 points. So he is on fire this season, but he's a rookie quarterback. A lot's been made out of how rookie quarterbacks typically don't win in the first round of the playoffs, especially on the road. But we never know what's going to happen in these wild card games, and with everybody betting on the Bills to win that game, don't be surprised if we end up seeing a situation where we could see an upset in this one. Wouldn't surprise me a bit, and that's going to set up Bo Nix to have a potential game in this one. As far as the running back situation, James Cook has a pretty decent matchup against Buffalo. Against the Broncos. They've been giving up points to the running back position. Probably one of the better matchups on the slate. They're giving up 22.4 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. On the other side, Buffalo's been giving up 25.9 DraftKings points a game to the running back position too. So James Cook has not gotten a lot of usage lately, and that could hurt his ownership in this one. But I do think that he is probably the best path to attack this Denver defense, and James Cook could have a decent game in this one. On the other side, we're looking at Williams, McLaughlin, and Estime, and people will probably shy away from this three-headed beast, but I think that McLaughlin might be set up to have the biggest game in this one. He's been getting the most attempts recently, and he should get some work in the passing game too. Buffalo's been one of the worst teams against defending the pass out of the backfield, and so that's going to set up either McLaughlin or Williams. I think in the passing game, Williams got 4 targets last week versus 2 for McLaughlin. He had 11 targets against the Chargers a couple weeks ago. So maybe Javonte Williams is the guy that we would want to consider here if we think that Denver is playing from behind a bit and needs to use the running back more as a pass catcher instead. So that's another interesting running back situation there. With the wide receivers, I think we're looking at Sutton in probably the most difficult matchup. That's going to open things up a bit for, I think, Marvin Mims, who also takes a lot of receptions behind the line of scrimmage. So that's going to set him up for potential usage in this one. And also Devon Vele, who plays in the slot. Buffalo is being targeted at the highest rate in the league in the slot position, and they're giving up 19.8 DraftKings points a game to the slot position. That's even higher than I think that's even higher than Kansas City and potentially Detroit. Let me check that real quick. If that's higher than Kansas City and Detroit, those are teams that we've been targeting all season in the slot. And yeah, that's higher than both those teams. So that's a very very interesting situation as far as potential matchup in this one. I do like that Devon Vele as a potential touchdown scorer. I had him as my heat seeker in my underdog video too, by the way. So definitely like Devon Vele in this one. Now, if we're moving on to Khalil Shakir, I think he's going to get a lot of the ownership. People are going to be looking for someone to stack with Josh Allen, but he has not done a whole lot recently. He's had a few good games this season, but recently he hasn't done a whole lot. On top of that, Denver isn't that susceptible to slot receivers. They're only allowing 11.5 DraftKings points a game to the slot, so that could be a rougher spot for Shakir than people realize. They've been more targeted wide out, and that's where it's going to be important to try to figure out who's going to have the matchup advantage. So yeah, just a rough situation for these receivers in general. But like I said, we don't necessarily need to start any of these. But if you're starting Josh Allen, then Keon Coleman might be the safer play. Cooper might be the one that's going to be getting the bad coverage from Surtain. So double check that. I don't see a shadow coverage situation on the fantasy points chart, but you never know if there's something in the like in the coach speak or something like that, where we get an indication or the beat reports where we get an indication where they're going to shift around their strategy a little bit. Denver is 43% man coverage. So that's going to be, interesting for Bo Nix as well. Playing against man coverage. All right. So he has a 57.6 completion rate against man coverage versus a 61.5% completion rate versus zone coverage. So against man coverage, he's ranked number 8 in the league. So he's pretty good against man coverage, which is going to set him up to potentially have a decent matchup, even better matchup in this one against this Buffalo defense, which is actually really bad against wide receivers. They're giving up 23.9 DraftKings points a game to wideouts and 19.8 to the slot, as I mentioned before with Vele. So this is going to be a situation where we could see Bo Nix having a decent game in this one and potentially upsetting these Bills, who have the tougher defensive matchup against the Broncos, at least from a fantasy points perspective. Let's go ahead and go ahead and plug in Bo Nix. I think I'm going to want to build my first lineup in that direction. He's the lowest owned guy on the slate as far as quarterbacks. Let's go check out Green Bay versus Philly. Green Bay versus Philly is going to be a tougher defensive matchup. Both of these teams have good defenses. With the Packers, Philly's been the best defense in the league ever since they got off their bye week. And then on the Philly side, Green Bay's been shutting down quarterbacks, and they've been middling against receivers, but they've been a little weak against running back. And that's going to be setting up Saquon Barkley to have a decent game. They've also been weak against the against the tight end position. So that's going to set up Goddard as well, giving up 13.2 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position and 22.5 to the running back position. So that's going to set things up for Goddard and Barkley to have decent games in this one. But really, those are the only two good matchups I see on this game. And like I said, we have better spots to focus on. So this might be one where, we're just taking Saquon Barkley and maybe plugging him in. Barkley in this week 1 matchup, he had 36 DraftKings points, but these are completely different teams at this point. But Barkley, I do like Barkley on this slate as probably the highest upside guy on the slate, but he's also obviously the most expensive. All right, so let's take a look at the receiver situation because we got Christian Watson out in this game. So I think that is going to set up Dontavian Wicks to potentially have a decent game. He's at 4,500, so he's pretty cheap. Romeo Doubs would be another guy, 5,400. They've been traditionally susceptible in the slot, but they made some pivots with their slot coverage. The Eagles have, and Jaden Reed. Normally, I'd like him in this matchup, but ever since the shift in the defense, Reed has been playing better. And also keep in mind with Green Bay, we're looking at Musgrave back. Musgrave is back, so that might mean more 2 tight end sets, and that's going to affect Jaden Reed the most as a slot receiver as far as his snap count goes. Let's take a look at Fantasy Pros and see if we can get an indication of what his snap count was since Musgrave has been back. So we're looking at Jaden Reed. He's been hovering around 45% for the majority of the season. He's actually been up a little bit recently. So, he's actually getting more usage with Musgrave back. So it's not a ding to Jaden Reed having Musgrave back. But, as far as the Green Bay receivers, maybe Wicks would be worth a flyer at 4,500. Like, I think he is probably going to be the better option in this one where they all have difficult matchups. On the other side, we're looking at injuries to the Green Bay secondary. Let's switch over to share this over instead. We're going to go look at the depth chart for Green Bay. And as you can see, Jair Alexander is on IR. Now, Evan Williams, the safety, is questionable. I think he put in a full practice, so he should play. And Quay Walker is also questionable. But this safety depth issues, Zane Alexander is already out. If Evan Williams is banged up, that could be interesting for Dallas Goedert to improve his matchup even more. We already like Dallas Goedert's matchup. That would improve him even more in this situation. So maybe Goddard would be the main guy I'm interested in, along with Barkley, and the DraftKings points allowed kind of dictates that too. So those guys are the ones that I'm interested in. Other than that, as far as receivers on the Philly side, Philly Brown could be in a good spot this week. AJ Brown. It's a middling points allowed situation, so it's not great, but let me get an idea if there's any sort of matchup advantage with him. So if I'm looking at the same chart, AJ Brown has a pretty good matchup advantage. Devontae Smith also has a decent one. So, just pretty good overall for the, let's see. Yeah, pretty good overall. Middling, I'd say overall for the situation with Philly versus Philly's receivers versus Green Bay. But I tend to fade this game because I think that we can get better receiver options over in the Washington Tampa Bay game. This is one where we're looking at Terry McLaurin and Jalen McMillan, I think, Jalen McMillan has the best matchup with the Lattimore situation for Washington. He's back and healthy, and he's likely to be on Mike Evans. And on top of that, Washington's been allowing 17 DraftKings points a game already to the wide receiver position, which is not a great matchup for Evans. They've been more middling against the slot receivers, so that's going to be a better matchup for Jalen McMillan. And they've also been weak against the running back position, giving up 21.7 DraftKings points a game to the running back. So that's going to set up Bucky Irving on top of it to have a decent game. On the other side of this, Tampa Bay's been weak against the quarterback position, giving up 20.8 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. That's going to set up Jaden Daniels, but like I said, he's the highest owned guy in the slate. But Jaden Daniels will be in a good matchup, and I think the best run back for him is going to be Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz, with points that are given up, he's basically the de facto wide receiver 2, especially with Noah Brown out. So Zach Ertz is going to be set up to have a decent game today against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Bucky Irving, I think, is probably the best running back play on the slate today, I'd say. And he's also much cheaper than Saquon, but I do think that we can get both those guys in the lineup together. I think overall running backs have the best matchup, followed by tight ends on today's slate. And so, that's going to kind of set us up to potentially, use a second tight end or a running back in the flex position in this one. So let's get on to building our lineup. So I started with this build with the Broncos stack. I like Mims, I think, a little bit better than Sutton in this one. I think the coverage on the wide receiver 1 is going to be tougher to overcome, and I like Vele in this one too. Vele has the best matchup out of any receiver on the slate, and I think that is going to be a good situation for Denver, and especially Vele. So let's get Vele in there. Running it back, I would probably run it back with Cook. Like I said, Cook had the best matchup, and if they're playing from behind, if Nix is playing from behind or trying to keep this game competitive, I think that Cook would be the most likely guy to get some usage in this one. I mentioned that I liked McMillan. Let's get McMillan in there, and I also like Bucky Irving. Let's get him in there. And I want to run back. I want Zach Ertz in there. Best matchup on the slate. That's going to leave us with options: Commanders, Packers, and Broncos for a defense. But I do like that direction as a potential direction if you want to go with that Denver stack versus Buffalo and play to the strengths of the matchup between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Washington Commanders later on. So that's one way that we could go. For those that want to use the Jaden Daniels route, let's try to build one here. Let's put him in there with Zach Ertz. And let's go on the other side. Let's get Bucky back in there. Well, let's get Barkley first of all. And let's get Bucky in there. And let's get McMillan in there because I like that. I like this game stack if we're going in that direction. Let's put Vele in there for some salary relief, which we know we're going to need at this point. And let's get one of those. Let's get one of those Denver running backs in this one. So let's swap out Irving for one of these Denver running backs. I'm going to go with Javonte Williams, and I get Irving in the flex, which is going to set us up. Like, want to put a defense in here. Let's go with the Broncos D. I think they're going to be they're 2,400, and Josh Allen is going to be potentially mistake prone in this one. That's going to set us up for Devontae Smith, Romeo Doubs. We got Khalil Shakir, Mims. If we want to put Mims in there and use that same strategy, it's going to give us 800 more to play with the running back position. It leaves us with still still that same situation. That could bump us up at our defense, though. So we could go Commanders, Bucks, Packers, Broncos. Gives us more options at the defense. But this is a way we could go with Jaden Daniels. I think we don't necessarily need to stack him with Terry McLaurin because he's obviously got that rushing upside. So Jaden Daniels has good potential in this one against a Tampa Bay team that should be able to put up points in this one. So it should be a good game to stack there. You can see I don't have a whole lot of Green Bay. That could bite me, but like at the end of the day, I think that Green Bay is going to have the toughest matchup on the slate against Philly's defense, and we got plenty of good matchups on this slate, so I don't really need to go there. Let's clear this one out. Now, Baker Mayfield is another option here. Baker, by the way, last night, if you watched the show, I mainly was going towards Russell Wilson as the quarterback. The lineup that we built on the show with the Russell Wilson situation went really well yesterday, and a variation of it would have shipped the main tournament yesterday. So Russell Wilson stacks did very well yesterday, and the reason why we targeted them was because no quarterbacks had a good matchup on the slate. So in that situation, we defaulted to the lowest owned guy, which happened to be Russell Wilson. We popped in Derrick Henry with him, popped in George Pickens, and had Nico Collins in that lineup too. So basically all the studs that went off yesterday were in that lineup, and we were able to do that by going with the cheapest guy. Similar situation with Bo Nix this week, I think, or today's slate. So if we want to go Baker Mayfield, I like him with McMillan and Bucky. And on the other side, I still like that Zach Ertz run back. So let's get Barkley in there too. And as far as our defense, let's leave the defense for now. Wide receivers, the other wide receivers are like Devon Bailey still. And for the flex position, maybe for the flex position, maybe this is one where we look at maybe going double tight end in the flex. So let's put Goddard in the tight end, and let's put Ertz in the flex, and that is going to set us up with 5,100 remaining per guy. Let's get a cheap defense in here. Let's go stick with the Broncos for now. 7,800 is what it's going to leave us for a final wide receiver spot. A.J. Brown, Cortland Sutton, Terry McLaurin. I mean, that sets you up really well using that direction on a Baker Mayfield stack. Double tight end. Tight ends and running backs, the best matchups on the slate. So I like either a running back or a tight end in that flex spot. And the salaries on these tight ends are going to make this really good for us to build some nice lineups. And that's a potential direction that we could go and have some success with this week. So, all right, guys, hopefully that helps everybody. Sorry about some of the confusion with trying to get the charts up and stuff like that. But, I do like the way that this slate is shaping up. I think that the matchups are there for us to take advantage of. And, the ownership on Knicks is going to be low. Baker's ownership is also going to be low, or lower than it should be, in my opinion. So take advantage of those, and I will see you guys later. Make sure to hit the like button, leave 30 likes, and I will put my favorite picks in the comment section, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks, guys.